Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your DJ.
Blog Talk Radio.
And good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on the eve of Michael Jackson passing away. The date is Monday, June 24th, 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, this is King Jordan you're listening to. And let's bring back one of our favorite guests, the man that represented Michael Jackson to victory in 2005, the best attorney in the world, the number one attorney in the world, Mr. Tom Mesereau. Tom, good evening. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be on your show, and thank you for inviting me again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I just want to let you know that we broke 2 years' worth of this station's record in audience listeners the last time you appeared on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Yes. So can you believe it's 4 years now? What is your thought?
No, I can't. I just remember the day I was walking out of the courtroom in federal court in Los Angeles. Susan Yu, my law firm partner, and also my co-counsel in the Michael Jackson criminal case, was with me. We were walking out of a courtroom. We were trying a high-profile mortgage fraud case in federal court in L.A., and one of the people we had assisting us was Randy Jackson's girlfriend, Tanya Zilke. She was helping us do some technical work for our presentations in the courtroom, and she came up to me, looked horrified. She said, "Michael has died." And I hugged her, and I didn't really believe it. So then I just wanted to believe it was another rumor, because Michael always had, these terrible rumors were going around. And then a couple of police officers came up to me and said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said, "I did. I hope it's not true." And I walked out of the courthouse, and I called my office, and my message machine was completely full with calls from around the world. And then I knew Michael had passed, and it seems like it was yesterday. I can't believe 4 years has passed. I really can't.
No, everybody seems to know where they were, and you definitely remember right away, without even hesitation, where you were the night or the afternoon that MJ passed.
It was late in the day. We had finished court. I think it was around 4:30 or so, West Coast time, Pacific Coast time, and It just seems like I walked into a nightmare. It just, as I say, Michael always attracted so many ridiculous, crazy stories and rumors that I was hoping it was just another one, and that was a form of denial, I guess, on my part. But unfortunately, it turned out to be true, and it was a great tragedy in so many different ways.
Totally. In fact, in 2008, you worked with a record star by the name of Will.I.Am. I want to play his reaction. We'll come back on the other side and we'll review it.
Taking a next step, is there is this going to be something totally new you've never done before, you think, the next step? Or maybe like, I look at Stallone doing Rocky again, and, just look at something like Thriller was so massive, doing Thriller 2 in a way, with CDs and DVDs and web components, the stuff that he's really good at. Would you do something like that?
Sure. Why not, yeah.
Or have you thought about that?
I haven't really thought about it in that way, but I will give it more thought. We haven't really discussed it yet on that level, but I'm sure at some point we will. But it's a great thought.
I feel like I'm a collaborator here.
Yeah, you are.
Might get a credit.
You are.
Might get a credit.
For right now, Michael is focused on creating and not recreating. And it is right here where Michael is teamed up with Black Eyed Peas leader Will.I.Am to take his music to the next level.
Do you see something big with the music that you make again, or getting that groundswell going, doing clubs and intimate things and then getting it bigger and bigger and bigger?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that level.
Is that for a threat from a fan?
Go ahead.
Big. Something needs to put a jolt back in the music industry. And the only thing that can do that is the jolt itself. The energy that sparked the imagination of the kids me, you know, the Justin Timberlakes. We're all products of this. So the only person that could put that jolt back in it to that monstrosity of entertainment and music is the one who created that.
I want to take this time to say thank you to Michael Jackson. Thank you for coming into my life with such beautiful music. Thank you for bringing me joy and bringing the planet joy. Thank you for giving me escape. Thank you for helping define me and my dreams. When you're in the ghetto surrounded by crime and violence, you gave me escape. I will escape from all the drama around me, listening to your music. Thank you, Michael Jackson. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your music. Thank you for the dreams. I used to want to dance like you. I used to draw pictures of you. Thank you for letting me work with you. Thank you for reaching out and try to teach me things about the music industry and how cruel people can be. But at the end of the day, loving and appreciating the craft and appreciating the fans. Thank you for flying me to Ireland to work with you. Thank you for coming to the show and talking to me on the telephone and answering phone calls and calling me up on Father's Day knowing that I don't have a dad. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a friend. You didn't have to want to know me, but you got to know me. Thank you. We have all lost a great artist, a light to the world, a true talent. We will always remember you. You're one of the most strongest people that I've ever met. You've undergone so much scrutiny, so much criticism from evil, wicked journalists who have nothing better to do but criticize. You have seen the music industry rise and fall. You are not just the king of pop, you are the king of the industry. You are the king of the music industry. There would never be an artist that would impact the world the way you have. There'll never be an artist to sell as many records as you. Never. There are no record stores. How could there be? There will always be Michael Jackson copycats. Thank you so much. You have made the world a wonderful place. You have brought us joy. And we thank you for that. And we will pray for you and your family. We will always love you. Thank you, Michael Jackson.
Okay, that was Will.I.Am from the Black Eyed Peas. Tom, your thoughts of the little message that he had for Mike?
Well, those are some of the most sensitive, kind, wonderful words about Michael I've ever heard. They're just so touching, so warm, They reveal a lot about, the speaker as well as Michael. I mean, this is a sensitive, caring individual, an artist who wants to give Michael his due, wants to let the world know what a great artist, what a great human being, what a great friend Michael Jackson was to him. And the sensitivity and the just the kindness, the warmth that comes through what he says is so appropriate to describing who Michael Jackson was and what Michael Jackson did for this person and also for the world. These are very special words. And by the way, Jordan, I want to commend you because this is the third interview I've done with you, I believe. And you always do prepare for these interviews with sensitivity, with kindness, with a respect for Michael Jackson. You seem to be so well educated, well versed in his life and his ups and downs, and you always pull out little things that reveal a lot about you too and what you think about this wonderful artist in person. So I want to commend you also for playing these words and including me in this whole process. I really appreciate it. But we all know what a delightful, wonderful person Michael was. We all know how he touched people on so many different levels, artistically, in a human way. We know about his compassion and his kindness for others and his desire to change the world with the great gifts he had. And those words you just played are so, so terrific. I mean, that's all I can say.
Well, Tom, coming from you, I want you to laugh instead of cry. But, coming from such a super person like you and you to just come on, a B radio show, if you will, means a lot to me. And you were very gracious. You didn't have any agents that I had to run to. You called me right back the first time. And, I think you have some of the wonderful qualities that Mike had.
Well, thank you so much. You're very kind. You're too kind. And absolutely. Okay, I have some questions that people, they're far away, but they couldn't be here. First of all, MJ/upbeat.com sent their love to you. And Luna Joe has a question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this or not. First, she says she has the utmost respect for you and how you still remain loyal to Michael. Do you think Michael's dealings with the Prince, Bahrain, led to causes of all his business problems later on? And did it lead to maybe the AEG This Is It concerts, as in the Prince of Bahrain being involved in this? Well, I don't know how to answer that question precisely because while I have some knowledge of these events, I don't have a deep knowledge of them. Obviously, Michael, let me step back for a second. I strongly encouraged Michael Jackson to leave Neverland after he was acquitted. And there was some reluctance there because he created Neverland with a purpose. He loved Neverland. He loved northern Santa Barbara County. He loved where he lived and what it signified for him, the animals, the rides, nature. I mean, you should have been there at night. I mean, Michael had put little lights in various trees, and he would play Disney-like music, and it was so magnificent, and it was all destroyed because of this false prosecution that put him through a nightmare. But I suggested he leave Neverland and not return. I told him he would never be at peace in Neverland because of what had happened. And I also suggested that the Santa Barbara prosecutors and the Santa Barbara sheriffs were humiliated and embarrassed by all the acquittals and would be gunning for him. And some child might wander through the open fence and they would pin a case on him again. I said, you can't live in peace here. Everything has a time and place. So I didn't know he was going to the Middle East. I didn't know he was going to go to Bahrain till the phone rang at our office, and he and Grace, his nanny, were calling Susan Yu, asking if we would assist transition. because there were ongoing business matters, ongoing lawsuit issues with everything from animals at Neverland, you name it. So Susan agreed to be his primary general counsel. I actually helped Susan, but she was the one primarily on the phone every day with lawyers in Bahrain and others. So he was there for, I guess, almost a year, and some of the business ventures, he had considered didn't work out. Well, that happened. And then, he moved from Bahrain. But do I see a connection between what happened in Bahrain and the AEG deal? I personally don't, but I don't want to pretend that I know all the details either, because Susan is the one with the detailed knowledge of what went on in Bahrain, not me, and I wasn't involved in the AEG negotiations or transactions. But, Michael, I think, was traumatized in some ways because he had to change his life. He had to leave Neverland, and he had to find a home to replace it, which was very difficult to do. And the poor fellow, in my opinion, lived like a rolling stone for a while. He was in the Middle East. He was in Ireland. He tried England. He went to Las Vegas. The poor fellow was trying to find a new place to ground himself, to call home because of that nightmare that was created by, the prosecutors and sheriffs in Santa Barbara County. And unfortunately, I don't know if he ever really did find a true home, because he then moved to Los Angeles. He was preparing for the concerts. It was going to be the greatest comeback in entertainment history. And then, then he died. So I don't know if there are connections between some of these attempts to get back into business and find a home for himself. I just see it as all very tragic in so many ways.
No question. I want to play a short little cut. This is former NBA star Allen Iverson, the day Michael died. It's a short little clip. Let's take a listen.
I mean, when Mo was talking about when he talked about, people acknowledge me for things that I do, I don't need people to praise me for that. I don't need people to praise me for that. God knows what I do, and the person that I do it for, they know. And that's the only thing that matters. I ain't trying to win no popularity contest. I felt like Michael Jackson was a gift from God, and he was put on this earth, and all through his life, for 40 years, all people did was criticize him. When you somebody, you popular, you gotta have tough skin, because you're never gonna be perfect to everybody. You're never gonna be able to satisfy everybody. All you're supposed to concentrate on is the people that love you and care about you. I think it brings joy out of people to knock people down.
Said NBA superstar Allen Iverson.
Well, what he said is very, very correct. And, the higher you go in life, the bigger a target you are. And this extraordinary human being who excelled in so many different ways, music, dance, choreography, entertainment, humanitarianism, sensitivity for others, someone who wanted to take his gifts and rather than just live selfishly and benefit from them, he wanted to change the world in significant ways. But he was a big target. And, I always say that when you have that much fame and that much wealth and you're perceived as that vulnerable because of your sensitivities and your kindness and your compassion, you make yourself a big target. And he was a target for just exploiters, users, manipulators, dishonest people his whole life. And he did his very best to try and heal and change the world with the gifts God gave him. And he was an extraordinary person. It's just so sad that he had to be such a target because he had so much that other people wanted and would say or do almost anything to get. But Allen Iverson's words were just wonderful. They're so kind and sensitive. I mean, I haven't heard them before. And you're so nice to play them.
Yeah, all through these last couple of days I've been digging it up. But I don't know if you heard about this. When the Wade Robson story broke, that same day, Diane Dimond, in my opinion, in an attempt to sell her book, Be Kind to Who You Love, or something like that, let you download the chapter where Wade Robson, told the truth under oath. In my opinion, that was a sleazy way of trying to make money selling her stupid book. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. I mean, the book was, stupid. It was, ridiculous. How she convinced a publisher to let her do that, I'll never know. The book has a lot of just distortions within the book, particularly as she covers the trial. She doesn't even mention, by the way, that he was acquitted of 4 misdemeanors. She says he was acquitted of the 10 felonies. She never mentions that he was also acquitted of 4 lesser-included misdemeanors. I mean, she did that probably to protect the prosecutors as much as she could. But it's a shallow book by someone who built her whole career, in my opinion, on trying to see Michael Jackson go down. And I think I've mentioned this before. I don't know if you've ever looked at her face when she's walking out of the courtroom after the acquittals. Mm-hmm. She looks like somebody has, run her over. I mean, it's just, she was devastated by these acquittals. It was obvious. She didn't approach it
really quick. Looked like she was really sick.
She didn't approach it as an objective journalist trying to just report the truth. She approached it as someone with a selfish interest in an outcome. And ever since then, in my opinion, she's tried to act like she's a professional journalist when it comes to Michael Jackson, and in my opinion, she's not. She showed no class. She showed no professionalism. She tried to skew the coverage every way she could. I was told she would run out of the courtroom after direct examination of prosecution witnesses and not look at the cross. I was told that and not report it. Now, I didn't see 99% of the reporting because I was too busy preparing for trial each day. But I don't think much of her book, and I don't think much of her, to tell you the truth.
No question. I mean, she has, if you think of her career, it's only tied to Michael Jackson. She has had maybe like an obsession with either taking Mike down or just making her career. There are other journalists have, yes, reported about Michael Jackson, but they have moved on. Diane Dimond, when he died, she said, instead of saying, and letting her feelings, do the talking, she said something to the effect of, I always knew it would be like Elvis. I always knew I'd be around to report Michael Jackson's death. She really said that.
Yeah, I never heard that before. This is the first time I've heard any words like that from her. But again, you're talking about someone that's not my favorite when it comes to journalism or trial coverage or writing. She had an agenda, in my opinion. She had a purpose. She was. I'll never forget one thing that probably you haven't heard before. One evening during the trial, Susan Yu, my co-counsel, who I was working on all the evidentiary issues with, she called up one of the prosecutors to discuss something with him, and the prosecutor picked up the phone and he said, "Hello, Diane."
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So, Susan responded, "No, this is not Diane Dimond. This is Susan Yu." So, she made no secret of the fact that she was tied closely with the prosecutors. My understanding is that when Prosecutor Ron Zonin married one of the witnesses, a couple of years ago, that Diane Dimond was at the wedding, as was Gavin Arvizo. That's my understanding. But she made no secret of where she really stood, except after it she tried to act like she'd been an objective journalist, and she never was, in my opinion.
No question. All right, let's take a phone call. Let's go up to California. And Mark, you're next.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Hi.
How was it that you were picked as Michael Jackson's attorney?
Well,
was there like a row of lawyers? They were like 6 or 5. Did you have to beat out anybody?
Well, originally, I mean, I knew Randy Jackson for years. I had never known Michael. And when Neverland was raided in November of 2003, I was driving down the California coastline from Big Sur towards Los Angeles, and I started getting a bunch of phone calls from Las Vegas from various people associated with Michael. Grace was on one of the calls. Larry Carroll, a prominent newscaster in Los Angeles who I had acquitted in a securities fraud criminal trial, was on the phone. Some other people were, and they wanted me to fly to Las Vegas to meet Michael. They said they didn't like some of the lawyers around them and wanted to hire me. And I said, look, you know, I'd love to do it, but I'm getting ready for the Robert Blake murder trial, which was a high-profile murder case in America. We're picking a jury in February of 2004. I can't do both. I can't focus on both. And they kept calling, and I said, look, I can't do it. Then I found out Johnny Cochran had recommended me to Michael. So they, Attorney Mark Garagos was around, but nobody seemed to want him to be Michael's lawyer. But nevertheless, I said I couldn't do it. Garagos showed up as his lawyer. Then I was told they were very unhappy with Garagos. He'd lost the Winona Ryder case. He was representing Scott Peterson and about to lose that case. And nobody seemed thrilled with him, so they brought in Ben Brathman from New York, who had a good reputation and who had tried a case with Johnny Cochran in New York. And 4 months later, we started picking a jury in the Robert Blake case. We're in the middle of jury selection, and he and I had a falling out that the judge tried to straighten out. The dispute we had is confidential, but nevertheless, we were in the judge's chambers for about 45 minutes to an hour, and she tried to straighten it out. She couldn't. So I withdrew from that case, and as soon as I did, Randy Jackson called me and said, Tom, we always wanted you. We can't stand these attorneys. Garagos is way over his head. He doesn't belong in this case. That's what Randy said to me. And would you come to Florida and meet my brother? It'll be very confidential and secret. And I said, sure, I can do that now. So I flew to Florida. I met Michael. Randy was there. I was questioned by a number of people about my background and who I was and my trial record, etc. I flew back, you know, and my assumption was they're probably interviewing a lot of people. And Randy called me back, you know, I think it was about 10 days later and said, you know, my brother wants you to be his lawyer. And I said, aren't you interviewing other people? He said, no. He said, my brother, you know, heard what you had to say, and he said to me, I want him. So Randy also said to me they had called Johnny Cochran, who was in a hospital, and he had told them that I was the one that could win the case, and I'll always be grateful to Johnny for doing that. So that's pretty much what happened. Now, after I was hired, I found out that I was told Garagos and Brathman were constantly lobbying other family members and trying to get in the case. And, of course, I would constantly hear about lawyers, you know, trying to get to Michael through various means, and including going to Neverland and talking to people around him. So it was a constant battle to deal with all of this politics that was always going around, because lawyers were always lobbying other Jackson family members, saying they wanted to be in the case and they should be in the case. And it was a you know, high-profile cases just attract all kinds of pressures and all kinds of problems. Sometimes you feel like you're fighting more on your side than you're fighting the other side, but nevertheless, it's a very stressful type of thing. But in answer to your question, lawyers were constantly trying to replace me, constantly trying to undermine me, even during the trial. But what happened, and I'm very blessed and honored to have been his lead criminal counsel. The most important lawyer in that case, as far as I'm concerned, was Susan Yu, my co-counsel, who, you know, didn't care about the media, didn't care about personal glory, just wanted to see Michael win, and they developed a very close relationship. And she was the one I trusted, and the one that I worked on the defense with more than anybody. And we couldn't have won the case without the incredible work she did, analyzing this evidence and just getting it organized. And, you know, she and I would every night, you know, just be on the phone talking about this document, that witness, this witness, that document. So I've given a long answer to your question, but I think that's the best I can do.
You got other people now look like they were trying to build a case against Michael. Do you see any realm of that? Can you are you still allowed to talk about it like if it was still going on?
Well, I mean, he was acquitted of every single count in 2000.
Yeah, but it looks like these people are still trying to bring up the all these allegations. Like certain things don't die. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Michael is dead, but all these surrounding factors are still alive. Do you have to still feel that you have to address that?
Well, I know what you're saying because the Wade Robson, you know, announcement recently shocked me because he was our first witness, and when the defense puts on their own case in a criminal trial, you always want to start strong and end strong. And I started strongly with our first witness, Wade Robson, who was just absolutely adamant that Michael had never touched him inappropriately, he'd never been molested, and he was the strongest witness for us, as was his mother and his sister. I call them as witnesses too. So his coming out recently with this shocking, you know, about faith, I never would have imagined that. But in addition to that, in this AEG trial, where Catherine Jackson and Michael's children are suing AEG for negligently hiring and supervising and retaining Conrad Murray, I know that Catherine's lawyer, Brian Panish, made a motion to not, asking the judge not to permit the defense, the lawyer for AEG, to raise molestation allegations because he was acquitted and it's irrelevant. And the judge agreed that she will let AEG's lawyers raise molestation allegations. Because of that, I'm on the witness list for the plaintiff. They want to call me, if necessary, to explain what happened in the criminal trial, that he was completely exonerated of all these counts, and also that, you know, I was well received in America after that trial because the defense...
And as you should be.
Well, the defense, as I understand it, is trying to claim that these molestation allegations, even though he was acquitted, diminished the value of his reputation. Of course, my response to that is, if you thought he had problems with his reputation, why did you enter into an agreement with him to do 50 concerts, and why did you advance $30 million before the concerts even began? But
you just answered your own question because of the money.
Yeah, they're trying to dirty Michael's reputation up in front of the jury, hoping that if they lose, that the damages awarded will be small. That's what I think they're trying to do.
Will they be calling upon you in this case?
Well, yes, I'm on the witness list for the plaintiffs, and they want to call me to talk about what happened in the criminal case, and also that after the trial, I was well received around America when I went on a speaking tour. I had people of all ages, all races, all nationalities coming up, shaking my hand. They were so happy that Michael Jackson was acquitted.
Right.
I may have to testify to those matters.
Okay, caller, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's go out to Arizona 480. You're next with Tom Mesereau.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mesereau. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I'm a defense attorney here, and I've been a couple of times on Mr. Jordan's show, so it's a very nice to be able to talk to you today.
Yes,
very nice.
Hi, King.
We have
How are you?
Vladimir. We have Vladimir from Arizona. He's a defense attorney as well. So,
very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I wanted to ask you, I had heard that you had mentioned the Robert Blake preliminary hearing that I think you said lasted a couple of weeks. And I was wondering, is that available anywhere that other lawyers can look at? And the reason I'm particularly asking is I had read an article you had written where you talked about cross-examination and opening statements and how you do it a little bit differently. And you had cited Herb Stern's trying cases to win. And it's kind of, from what I understand, the minority way to do cross-examinations, opening statements, assume the burden, ask ultimate questions, and I'd be interested in seeing that. Is that available anywhere? Have you thought about
Well, it was a 3-week televised preliminary hearing. It was televised by Court TV. And I have some of that material. I haven't looked at it in years, but I did approach that preliminary hearing in a very unconventional way. As I think you know, normally, in a preliminary hearing, the defense is not prepared to essentially try the case, and even if they are, they don't want to give away their cross at an early stage in the case. I decided to break the rules, and I prepared to essentially put the prosecution witnesses on trial with extensive cross-examination, and I really sensed that the prosecutors were so full of themselves and thought they were riding so high that they were going to put all these witnesses on without ever expecting heavy cross-examination. So I approached it like a trial. I approached it in a very different way than I think most lawyers would. And it was a gamble, but it worked because we really just demolished their witnesses to the point where going into the preliminary hearing, 80+% of court TV viewers thought he was guilty, and after 3 weeks of a preliminary hearing, 80+% thought he was not guilty. So it helped his reputation. The cross-examination enabled us to knock out the conspiracy count, which also knocked out a co-defendant, which made a better case for us to approach a jury with. And it was the first time in the history of California that anyone charged with murder with special circumstances, for which you could face the death penalty, had gotten bail over prosecution objection. At the end of that preliminary hearing, the judge agreed to give him bail, which, every judge and every lawyer Robert Blake had talked to told him you have no chance. I told him, look, anything can happen in a criminal case. We're going to approach this very differently. So the answer to your question is Court TV has those tapes. I have some of them, or most of them probably, but they have them. I just haven't looked at them in years. But I did cross-examine these witnesses very extensively, the coroner, the police, their ballistics experts, their forensic experts, their witnesses who claim that Blake had solicited them to commit murder. And I gave a closing argument like a trial. And it was a good day for us because he got free, and I think we changed public opinion on the case, and we pinned down their witnesses on videotape in ways that haunted the prosecution at the trial. But Court TV would have them if you can. Now, Court TV became In Session, which is owned by CNN, and they would have them.
Yeah, I just tried looking on YouTube. I know Jerry Spence has a couple of things on there, but I would love to be able to see it. And now, if I may ask, too, is as far as cross-examination and opening statement goes and closing argument, do you have sort of a philosophy or approach that you use, or is it kind of on a case-by-case basis? Do you have like an overarching principle?
Well, I think that, the overarching principle for me is that you have to be aggressive from the opening bell. And everything you do is part of your argument as to why your client should be acquitted, why your client's innocent. I don't like the way lawyers hide behind technicalities. For example, in my opening statement, I never mention reasonable doubt. I basically look at the jury and say my client's innocent and I'm going to prove it. Because I don't think people who sit on juries want to hear fancy technical arguments by lawyers. Now, in the Michael Jackson case, I broke about every rule imaginable. In my opening statement, I looked at the jury and said, he's innocent and I'm going to prove it, and I want you to hold me to my agreement. And I got criticized around the country for assuming a burden like that in my opening statement, for not mentioning reasonable doubt, for not mentioning the burden of proof. I wasn't going to do that. I knew that the media had crucified Michael Jackson. They thought nobody could win this case. They thought he was going to prison. And emotionally, the environment we were in was just so much against us that I said, I'm going to get up my opening statement and I'm going to challenge these people to keep an open mind and to let me prove this man's innocent, even though technically under the rules we don't have to prove anything. We just have to show a reasonable doubt. I didn't think that was a good approach. I guess Janet Arvizo, the mother, was maybe a classic example where I, did something that, there was one lawyer sitting at our counsel table who was red-faced, so why are you doing this? I said, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. I just let Janet Arvizo talk and talk and talk. because I felt the more she talked, the more she was going to reveal who she was. And Prosecutor Ron Zonin, who had put this witness on, kept looking at me, waiting for me to object as she talked and talked, and I wouldn't say anything. And finally, he started objecting to his own witness. You know, it's his own witness answering his questions, and he'd look at the judge and say, Your Honor, objection, non-responsive, move to strike, which made her look even worse. With Gavin Arvizo, I asked the why question, why he was mad at Michael Jackson. And, we're taught in conventional cross-examination, don't ever ask a why question because you give the witness a chance to say all sorts of horrible things. But I really thought this kid was lying. And when he answered that question, he talked about all the reasons he was mad at Michael Jackson, except he didn't mention that he was molested. And I think that was a critical moment for us in the trial. Professor Laurie Levinson at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles, is a friend of mine, thought that why question won the case. Because I felt that all this molestation stuff was a complete ruse, and I knew he was mad at Michael Jackson because the Arvizos, in my opinion, wanted to hang around Neverland forever and call him daddy and, use his resources and fame, etc. So, this kid was, to me, coached to say a lot of things. And in the heat of the moment, when I said, why were you mad at Michael Jackson, he went through all sorts of things but never said he touched me, never said he molested. That's another example where I guess I broke the rules. But I've written some articles. There's one that I spoke to a law school class in Alabama around 2007 or 8. It's called Random Thoughts on Trial Practice.
I think I read that one, actually. I saw it on your website.
Okay, that's one where I talk a lot about this. But the answer to your question is, I think this is an art, not a science. And I think every case is unique, and particularly the psychology and the emotions of each case are very unique. And how you approach a trial should not be just something that's, where you're constricted by these conventional techniques that you've been taught in law school. I think you've got to be an artist, you've got to be creative, and you've got to take risks depending on the situation. I don't know if I've answered your question well, but...
Absolutely, and if you ever think about putting some of the video or audio of your trials or preliminary hearings, whatever you have online somewhere, I'd love to take a look. I don't know if you could consider doing that. But I think it would help a lot of younger lawyers and public defenders kind of break the mold of what we've been taught in the past 10 years or so and help a lot of defendants out there who need help.
Thank you. So I'll definitely consider doing that. I have these, they're actually videotapes. They're not on disc. I have them, and maybe I should look at a few and maybe post a few. Thank you very much for your thoughts and suggesting I do that.
Well, thank you for taking my call, sir.
Oh, pleasure.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's go over to Atlanta 706. You are next. Please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Sharon. Hello to Mr. Mesereau.
Oh, hi. Thank you for calling.
Oh, my pleasure. You were talking about, or you had someone call in and was talking about Diane Dimond and her psychology. I don't know if you saw it or heard about it, but right after the Wade Robson allegation, Radar Online published an article. The interviewee was Mr. Ron Zonin. And it went on into, he had been expecting this, the dam is breaking, and he went into this soliloquy about dark pleasures and the same kind of thing that they used during the 2005 trial. Now, we all know that it's not fair, but legally he has the right to say what he can say. But I would have thought that someone of his stature, Diane Dimond, she is a different sort psychologically. But I would have thought someone of Ron Zonin's stature would not get caught up in this particular thing again, because it doesn't really help him. And,
well,
what are your thoughts on why he why they continue to do this, why someone like he continues to do this.
Well, Ron Zonen, I have to tell you, is the finest trial prosecutor I've faced. I mean, I've never been in front of a better one. He was just a very skilled, passionate, prepared, experienced prosecutor. He was really a formidable opponent. And he clearly put his heart and soul into this case, and I think in his mind he thought he was on the right side. I mean, I have people often ask me, do these prosecutors really believe Michael Jackson was guilty? And I always say, I think they convinced themselves that he was guilty. And Zonen appeared to take the loss very hard. I don't know if you've seen, a couple of years ago, the Los Angeles County Bar Association had a symposium on the Michael Jackson case. And I was on the panel, Larry Feldman was, Carl Douglas, and Ron Zonen was. And Zonen was still talking about Gavin Arvizo like he was the victim. And I don't think he and Diane Dimond will ever get over the acquittal. Because, remember, this was one of the most publicized trials in world history. I mean, you know, you had more accredited media cover this trial than O.J. Simpson and Scott Peterson combined. It was a huge event around the world. And when the jury had reached a verdict, in every world capital, people stopped to find out what was going to happen to Michael Jackson. He was the biggest celebrity in the world. And I think Dimond and Zonen convinced themselves that he was guilty, and they were, you know, expecting a conviction. And I don't think emotionally and psychologically they'll ever get over the loss. That's my impression. I'm just giving my opinion. But it's a free country. You know, we have the freedom to express ourselves as we choose, and they have a right to their opinions, and we have a right to ours. You know, their opinion is he was guilty. My opinion is he was absolutely innocent, and a very conservative jury in a very conservative county and a very conservative courtroom found him not guilty on every single count, 10 felonies, and 4 lesser-included misdemeanors. So that's my response.
Okay. Well, I think differently of Diane Dimond as far as opinions. Ron Zonen, I tend to agree. I think it's more, he can't get over the loss. However, I want to thank you very much for taking my call. I also want to commend you for being the kind of person you are. Your loyalty is exceptional. And to Jason, thank you for having the show again. And
Jordan, yeah.
Excuse me, Jordan. And I'm finished.
Well, thank you very much. You're very kind. I appreciate the compliment.
You have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's go out to 630. You are next. Please state your name. 630.
Hi, Jordan. This is Debbie Kunish, and hi, Tom. I just wanted to call in. First of all, tell you that this is a wonderful show. I'm really enjoying listening to it, and a lot of the clips that you played in the beginning were wonderful. I had never heard them before.
Thank
Tom,
you.
Oh, you're welcome. Tom, one of the questions, the question I had for you was, you know, during the trial and all the time that you spent with Michael, was there any memory that, you know, that's really poignant, that really stands out for you during all that time? Something that stands out for you about Michael?
Well, there are many memories that do. You know, I've talked often about how, you know, a couple of months before the trial, my sister became terminally ill with lung and brain cancer, and how she had a brain tumor removed and came home and saw the biggest bouquet of flowers she'd ever seen, and it was bigger than her door. She couldn't imagine where these came from. And she saw a little envelope, and there was a little poem from Michael wishing her well. So that, but, you know, there are also some very troubling memories. You know, he would call me and or Susan Yu at 3, 4 in the morning during the trial crying about what might happen to his children. I mean, there were, you know, it was a very difficult experience. I met him during the lowest point in his life. And He was a sensitive, kind person with a very creative, almost childlike spirit about him. And to put him through that meat grinder of a felony trial for 5.5 months, and to accuse him of masterminding a criminal conspiracy to falsely imprison a family, to abduct children, to commit criminal extortion, to claim he molested children, to claim that he would give a cancer-stricken child alcohol to prepare the child for molestation. These were the most horrid allegations. But when you have a sensitive, gentle soul like him accused of these things, I mean, it was just torture. It was horrible. So I have, many memories of talking to this poor soul as he tried to cope with it.
Sure.
And, he always had a sense of humor. There was a childlike sort of comical spirit about him. We would laugh at certain things when we could. But the situation was so serious. It was so ugly. It was so traumatic for him. Seeing him at Neverland with his children hugging him, and he was trying to shield them from all this and doing his best, but they were just little children. They knew something was wrong with their dad, but they weren't quite sure what it was. And I mean, I have many memories of him that I'll always cherish. Some of them are, just him smiling at simple little things. There was a simplicity about him, despite the fact that he was the best-known celebrity in the world and one of the wealthiest people in the world and a brilliant artist. There was a simplicity about him with animals, with nature, that was very infectious. It was wonderful. So I have many, many memories. There are so many that I will always cherish, but I was in an ugly situation trying to save him from something very, very ugly, very sinister, very traumatic, very painful. And I had to focus on my job. And as I've said many times, I lived like a hermit, for 6 months in Santa Maria, in bed 7:30, 8 o'clock every night. I wouldn't be seen in a hotel lobby. I wouldn't be seen at a bar or restaurant. I knew the media would try to put me in a bad light, try to hurt him. And I just was on to what they were up to, and it was a very, very, very difficult situation in many ways, although I'm so blessed to have been his lead counsel. But he was a wonderful person. He was kind. He was gentle. My mother, who really didn't know a lot about Michael Jackson, believe it or not, and she's elderly now. She's had some difficulties health-wise. But I remember when I got in the case, she started looking at television. She was in a home. And I went to see her, and she said, I don't know much about him, but I've observed him. She said, he's a kind, gentle soul. I don't see him doing this. And those words have always rung with me, kind, gentle soul. That was her impression of Michael Jackson, watching him and studying him without knowing a lot about him. And it's true. He should never have been put in the middle of that meat grinder. That was just a horrible, ugly experience. And fortunately, we saved him, at least legally. But, emotionally, I'm sure it was just a horrible thing for him to deal with.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for answering my question, and thank you both for doing the show. I know a lot of people appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Debbie. And thank you for your wonderful website also.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Tom, I want to play you another piece. Akon, famous superstar, he's talking about an incident in the movie theater with Michael Jackson. Let's take a listen. We'll talk on the other side.
Throughout Michael's career, he always made it a point to personally reach out to the hot hitmakers of the moment when it was time to record new music. And rarely did these star artists miss an opportunity to work with the king of pop. One artist who got that opportunity was Akon. A couple of years ago, Michael invited him to his studio in hopes of writing new music. What resulted was one of the most memorable moments of Akon's life.
Like, my favorite moments was the day we actually met, because I didn't expect him to be that cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm expecting him to be this just diva, just, hard to deal with, barely speak, got to send his message through somebody else. Like, these are the stories that you hear. So I'm going upstairs, and I knock on the door, His bodyguard open said, okay, he's waiting to meet you. So I walk in, and he's in a spinning chair, but he's facing backwards. So I walk in the room, and his back is turned. And the guard says, here's Mike, you know, Akon's here. So he just spins around, and just, like it was all choreographed, right? So off top, I'm like, oh, boy. You know what I mean? As soon as he turns around, gets up, yo, what up, man? I was like, what up, Mike? And he gave me a pound. We hugged each other. He said, yo, man, I've been waiting to meet you for so long, man. This is a great honor. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for making the time. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I should be thanking you right now for making the time, you know? But it was the craziest thing, because we sat down, we talked about Africa, we talked about my foundation, we talked about the music, we talked about girls. Like, we had a great, like, incredible time that day. I love movies. He was a moviegoer. He loves movies as well. And he was like, yo, man, I got to take you to this theater. This new technology they got, it's like 4D. Like, it feels like, you know, the images are right in front of you, like you're actually in the mix of it. And I was like, nah, I know 3D. He's like, no, listen, you got to check this out. I said, well, let's go. And he paused for a minute. He's like, okay, let's do it tomorrow. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I don't know how we expect to go to the movies, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is Michael Jackson. Like, how the hell are we going to actually go to the movies? So the next day, you know, he calls my room. We was both staying at the Palm in Vegas. He's like, you ready? I'm ready. I was like, yeah, let me get dressed. But at the time, I thought he was just joking. I didn't think he was really, I thought he was going to probably just rent, you know, we go through the back late night or something. This is broad daylight. So he grabbed the kids. They looking normal. Mike comes out. He has his disguise on, you know. So I starts laughing because I didn't even recognize him, you know. It wasn't like he had a fake mustache or he had a wig or nothing. He just had a simple hoodie on. So when you look at it, he could have easily passed to be a Saudi or somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we're going into the mall. We get on the elevator, go down. We're going through the hotel where they have the IMAX thing. And as soon as we walk in, all these kids start coming running towards us, you know? So I'm like, oh, damn, I think they know who he is. And all the kids just caught running up to me, asking me for an autograph. So I'm like, okay, I should just go ahead and should I just toss him off before they recognize who he is or just play it cool? So he shakes his head and like as if, yeah, go ahead, do what you got to do. So I sit, I'm signing autographs, taking pictures, and I'm looking at these kids' faces, and they not even knowing that Mike is standing right next to me. Like, if they only knew this guy was standing right next, you know how much havoc that would have caused up in that place? So we get into the theater, and then the manager greets us up front. So he comes and hands us the tickets. We're all seated. So as we, you know, talking, sometimes I forget that he's supposed to be in his disguise, you know. And I keep calling him Mike. Right, and this little girl hears us. She's like, and she looks over, and I think she recognized him. Like, I really think she did. So then when I realized she was peeping, then I start calling him Dave. But she wasn't stupid. So she runs up, shoo, full speed, goes all the way to the top of the theater. And I see her whisper. And I look up, and the girl's just pointing. And I know she's not pointing at me. Like, I know this. And I think he kind of felt it, too. So right before the movie was over, we just all got up and started walking out. But by the time we got to the car, everybody in that place knew that possibly that could have been him. It was just the funniest thing, man. He was extremely funny, you know, he tells jokes, he laughs a lot, he just liked to have fun.
Michael definitely had a sharp sense of humor, but when it came to making music, Akon remembers him being all business.
Well, a lot of our memories in the studio was a lot of it work because he was so focused on trying to get the right material out that we didn't really play around in there. You know what I mean? Like, we talked, but we rarely joked. Because at that moment, regardless of what we was doing then, let's get serious. And let's really do what we came here to do. He was never satisfied. Like, we might have passed up ideas that I know for a fact in my heart was smashes. He'd be like, nah, we gotta come up with better. We gotta come up with something better. I'd be like, Mike, you can't get no better than this. What do you mean? No, trust me. If we can create this, we can create better. So it was over, and I promise you, as soon as we create something better than that, he'll say, we can do better. So we could never do better because his expectation was so high, and I think that was one of the main reasons why it took so long for him to create a project and him to be happy with it, because he was so hard on himself and such a perfectionist to a point where no matter how incredible the record was, he believed it can get more incredible. Like, we never finished. It always became, we did tons of ideas. Like, I got ideas for years. Literally, I got ideas now that I probably use for myself because we never got a chance to use them. But I know we're great, you know what I mean? Because music was always just fun and great going. But with him, it was a legacy that has to be, and a reputation that he had to have, and a standard that he had to continually match or get beyond, because he had accomplished and done so much to a point where he had to expand higher than where he was already at. He created a standard so high for himself that he could not see himself lose. But in this way, you know, I think I could never dispute with him, because at the end of the day, when the project was done, you couldn't deny it.
Tom Mesereau, your thoughts on Akon about Michael Jackson?
Well, I mean, it reminded me of when I was in London for the red carpet premiere of David Guest's, you know, wonderful documentary, Michael Jackson, The Life of an Icon.
Yes.
I was talking to Martha Reeves, who's, you know, a legend from the Motown days, who also was in the film and was at the red carpet premiere. And she said, you know, if I want to go perform somewhere, I can just go perform. But she said, Michael Jackson, he couldn't do that. If Michael Jackson was going to perform, it had to be the most elaborate, the most exceptional, the most complicated, the most perfect type of original, you know, performance with dancers and choreographers and enormous background material. She said, you know, I just go sing when I want to. She said, but if Michael Jackson did it, it had to be the most original, the most perfect, the most unusual, you know, genius-like creation. And that's what Akon's words reminded me of. This man was such a genius and such a perfectionist, such a hard worker, and he would create things and take risks that other people wouldn't. I mean, you know, how did somebody come up with the idea for Smooth Criminal? How did someone come up with some of these ideas he had? I mean, it's just remarkable what he would come up with. It wasn't like anything anyone else had ever done.
And he had music for everybody. If you were a rock fan, for example, he produced some rock. If you were a pop fan, he had that. If you were into dancing, he had that. He had a little something for everybody.
You know, look at Thriller. I mean, you know, where did he get this idea from? It just was remarkable. And I still hear his music all the time, and I say to myself, nobody else could create this. Nobody could ever copy it. It's just remarkable stuff, the wealth of creativity and originality, and his ability to do everything from sing and choreograph and dance. You know, he never took a dance lesson in his life. I mean, I'm just forever amazed by the genius in this person. I really am, and I always will be.
And it's so great to celebrate it. Okay, let's go to 713.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. I was wondering, do you think with the trial and everything that Michael went through, do you think that had some bearing on his demise?
I mean, I couldn't hear the whole question. I apologize. Can you repeat that?
She said, do you think the trial had an effect on his demise? That was her question.
Well, I mean, my understanding is that he died because of Conrad Murray's, you know, horrible treatment of him as a patient. You know, and my understanding is that propofol was the cause of death. And, you know, propofol is a dangerous anesthetic. It's not a treatment for insomnia. And my understanding is that he died from acute propofol intoxication. So I think that's what caused the death. Do I think the trial was traumatic for him? Of course it was. It changed his life in many ways. He left Neverland, as I said before. He, moved to the Middle East and Ireland and other places. I think it had a very, very traumatic effect on him, but I don't think it ruined his ability to perform or to create. And I think if it hadn't been for Conrad Murray's, horrible treatment of Michael Jackson, I think that he would have done these concerts, and I think he would have risen to the occasion, and I think it would have been the greatest comeback in entertainment history. I really believe that. I understand there's evidence that Michael was having sleep problems and, whatever problems he had, but Michael Jackson had a principle that guided his entire entertainment career from the time he was a child, and that principle was the show must go on. And Michael Jackson was the kind of person, whether he had a back injury or whether he had trauma in his personal life, whatever it was, when Michael Jackson stepped out there to perform, a genius performed. He just did not seem to let personal issues or personal problems interfere with the amazing performances he gave. And I really believe that no matter what sleep problems he had or personal problems he had, I think that if he had gotten to London, I think these would have been the greatest performances ever seen by an entertainer.
Did you get a chance, Tom, to see This Is It, the build-up to the movie?
I saw it 3 times. I love it. It just, every time I watch it, I just get emotional over what this person created and what kind of a person he was. I love the film This Is It. Although, at times he looks a little bit gaunt. At times he doesn't look healthy to me, but at other times he looks remarkably spirited and healthy for a man his age. But clearly that movie brings out, to me, the genius of Michael Jackson, and I love the film.
Yeah, he does, though, look at times, though, for somebody that's 50 years old, that could still go. And you got to remember, he was just rehearsing. So think of that from that standpoint,
Well, I remember one point where one of the musicians, I forget which one it is, looks at him and says, "Look, you hear things we don't hear."
Yes, Michael Bearden, right.
You have to be patient because you see things we don't see. You hear things we don't hear, and it just summarizes what a genius.
Right, the guy that was playing on the piano, right?
Yes, I think you're right. Yes.
That was something. Okay, before we wrap it, I want to play this. How fitting. This is a private phone call between Ryan White and Michael Jackson. It was recorded June 26, 1989. Let's take a listen. A very exclusive from the Ryan White family .com. Let's take a listen.
To the premiere, and we don't know how we're getting out there yet or what, but we're going to be there.
Well, great. I look forward to seeing you. It's great to get together and goof off again.
Yeah.
Just have some good old fun.
Yep.
No, thanks for the invitation.
Okay, yeah.
I'm in a car, so if I lose, you'll be coming out again.
Well, we're coming out, Andrea? Someone's on the phone. Oh.
Ryan?
Okay, yeah.
I'm in a car, so if I lose you, I'll call you back later, okay?
Okay. Well, we're coming out in, I think, the 19th, or, yeah, the 18th to the 23rd. 27th, when is it? I forget. So we're coming out sometime around the 19th of June.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
How long will you get to stay? Do you know, like a week or?
Probably a week. I was going to ask, you may not be able to, but I've got 2 tickets to the premiere of Batman.
You do?
Yeah, the movie, the premiere.
You're kidding.
Well, I want to know if you wanted to go.
Oh, boy, I would love that. I don't know if I will be able to. I sure will check. What date is it?
What date is that? The 20th. Gosh, you would ask that. I would ask that. I don't know. I believe it's the 19th or the 20th.
Oh, boy, I'd love to see that, but let me check for sure. Because around that time, I'm going to be recording. But, I have to see. I've been dying to see Batman myself. Sounds fun, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I know. Thanks for the invitation. I'll check.
Pardon?
I said, thank you for the invitation. I'll check and see.
Oh, if you can't make it, that's okay. But I want you to know, you're welcome to come.
Thank you. Very nice. Yeah, you're welcome to stay at the ranch if you want.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Okay. So you'll be in town for the premiere, huh?
Yeah, we're supposed to be, I mean, we've got 2 tickets to the premiere, and we don't know how we're getting there yet or what, but we're going to be there.
Well, great. I look forward to seeing you. It's great to get together and goof off again.
Yeah.
Just have some good old fun.
Yep.
For sure. So you've been doing okay?
Yeah, pretty good. School's about out.
Is it?
Yeah, this is our last week.
You're kidding.
Last full week, and we go Monday and Tuesday, half day.
You're kidding.
No.
Oh, you must be so happy.
Oh, yeah. I'm tired of getting up early in the morning. And
in case I lose you, I'll call you back later.
Okay.
Because it's getting kind of fuzzy. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So everything's, how's your sister?
She's doing good.
That's good.
She's ready for school to be out, too.
Have you seen Indiana Jones?
No, we haven't got to see it yet.
I bet you want to see that.
Yep. The lines have been long here. We just haven't had time to get out and wait in them.
Yeah. I've been wondering what you've been doing. I've been thinking about you, wondering how you're doing and everything.
Yeah, just been...
So I got to get around to calling him back, and I've just been so busy because I'm getting my album together again.
Oh.
And got to work on songs and go in the studio like every day and all that.
So is that what you've been doing?
Yeah, I just finished the picture session all day working on pictures.
Don't you hate smiling for so long?
Yeah, it's so corny.
Smile? No, that's not like you were smiling earlier. Smile like you smiled earlier. How did I know? I don't know how I smile. Give me a mirror. Let me look.
Yeah.
It's been warm here.
Has it?
Yeah, we had a lot of rain here. The lake we live around has got kind of really flooded. The banks are up over it.
Kidding.
Yeah, and so we live in kind of a low area, so there's a lot of the places were filled with water. I mean, you couldn't even drive a car through because it was so full.
Gee, did you go fishing?
Huh?
Did you go fishing?
No, because they treated our water around here with this copper stuff, and it's killed off a lot of the fish. So they have to restock the lake with fish. And they had to because the lake we live on is what we get our water from, and it had a real funny taste to it. So they had to put this chemical in it to clean it.
Well, I'm getting near the mountains. I better hang up. I know it's going to disconnect here.
Okay.
I'll call you back, though, okay?
Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Okay, are you going to be coming around here anytime?
When I do, I'll for sure stop in.
Okay.
Bye, Ryan. I'll call you back, okay?
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I tell you, Tom, that sounds like a man who generally cares about children, not a man that wants to do harm to children. Your thoughts on the clip I played?
No, I couldn't understand every word that was said, but that's the childlike Michael, the Michael who was kind and considerate and sensitive to others, particularly children, who constructed Neverland to see children happy, particularly kids from underprivileged backgrounds, children from the inner city, children from the hood, children surrounded by gang violence and poverty, and problems with their families. He'd love to see them come to Neverland and just have fun and enjoy themselves. That's the kind, loving, considerate Michael Jackson that I knew and that we all respected and loved. That's who it was. And again, every time I hear something like that, it reminds me how cruel it was to falsely accuse him of these kinds of ugly, charges. I mean, just the cruelty in taking children, who he thought and believed were pure and innocent and people who would not steal from him or want him to do a project for them or try and get money from him, to take children and turn them around and try and make him a monster in a criminal courtroom, but just the cruelest thing anybody could have done to this very gentle, kind spirit. And but that's the kind child like Michael Jackson that hoped to change the world and make it a better place, and I think he succeeded.
No question. You hear the sincerity with Ryan White. The quality wasn't that great, but you could tell that Michael generally cares for children, doesn't want to do harm to them. He has the child-like in him, as Elizabeth Taylor has said, and many other people. And, one day I just hope the Diane Dimond, Maureen Orts, and, I'm sure I'm missing a few, will get it right. And, see things the way they should be seen. And let the facts speak for themselves. 12 people said no way. That team said no way. And I think it's time for Diane Dimond, Maureen Orth, and Wendy Murphy and others like that to move on.
Yeah, I think they're too invested in their positions. I think they spent so much time and effort to try and justify and explain their positions that I don't think you'll see them backtrack anytime soon. They just thought they were riding the crest of a fascinating chapter in world history where, they wanted to see Michael Jackson, who had risen to the greatest heights. They wanted to see him fall and splatter and go to prison. To them, it was an exciting story to write about. And my impression of them is that they think they were denied, that final chapter, and they'll be resentful for the rest of their days. That's how I view them. So I don't think you'll see them change anytime soon, but more importantly are the millions and millions of people all over the world who loved Michael, appreciated him, and still reflect on his wonderful contributions to the world.
Oh, no question. I mean, did you feel the audience of tears as the verdict got closer, as you got closer to closing arguments? Did it feel good to have, I guess, the home court advantage, if you will?
Well, you say home court advantage. What do you mean now? Do you mean the criminal case?
I mean, like, you take Jodi Arias, for example. Obviously, nobody on the outside of the court liked her. But when Mike would arrive, he had his set fans there who would come from all over to see him and try to get him through this. And I remember that sign, on behalf of mankind, we're sorry. I'm talking about those loyalist fans.
Yes, I mean, it was obviously wonderful to see the fans outside the courthouse supporting him. And, I'll never forget the first day I showed up to appear in that courtroom as his lead criminal defense counsel. There was an African-American woman outside the courtroom with a big sign that said, "The wisdom of God is with you." And I never forgot that because I felt that God was on our side and that we were doing the right thing. But I have to tell you, on verdict day, when I was in the courtroom and sat down with Michael and Susan at counsel table, and, for a second I glanced at the spectator section, and it was mostly media, and my impression was they all had a smile on their face. They all were salivating over what they thought was going to be a guilty verdict, They were salivating over the ratings and the drama of seeing him handcuffed and hauled off to jail, prison. And when he was acquitted, and I hugged him, my eye happened to catch a few of these journalists, and they looked very disappointed. So there was a lot of cruelty and a lot of malice and a lot of anger surrounding, that entire process. But by the same token, all of his fans around the world were pulling for him. They were outside the courtroom listening, to every not guilty and verdict and shouting and screaming. So he had his supporters, and he had the people who just appreciated him and never lost faith in him. But unfortunately, there also was an ugly element that wanted the drama to be complete with a conviction and Michael being hauled off to jail and prison. That's what they wanted, and they were very disappointed when it didn't happen.
Did you, I saw you in one of the YouTube, I think at Harvard, with Dan Abrams. What was your take on his reporting for the trial?
To be honest with you, I didn't see a lot of it because, typically, we were in court from about 8 o'clock till about, as I recall, 1:30, 2 o'clock. There was no lunch break. There were 10 and 15-minute breaks. And then we would leave the courthouse. We would have a, lunch or dinner at mid-afternoon. I would go back and start preparing for the next day. And the media coverage that I saw was really, I would take maybe a 10 or 15-minute break during my preparation and just turn the TV on, and usually I just couldn't stand what I was seeing. It was all such nonsense. But I can't tell you that I really focused on Dan Abrams' coverage of the trial. My understanding is that he, like most, thought there would be a conviction. But I can't comment intelligently because I didn't watch a lot of his coverage. I honestly did.
Yeah, did you see any of Mike Taibbi? I thought he was well-balanced and fair for the most part.
Mike Taibbi, I did see some of his coverage, and I thought he was very ethical, very professional, very balanced, and clearly one of the best journalists to cover that trial, no question.
Yeah, and a pack full of, people that had him guilty, I think. And one other person, Geraldo Rivera, do you have an opinion on him?
Yes, I have very little respect for him. I think he's not very professional in his reporting or in his investigation. Yes, he did say that he thought Michael Jackson was not guilty, at least early in the case, and then suddenly he went silent. And I always had the impression that somebody at top must have told him to go silent. But I've never had much respect for Geraldo.
I know that. And he did have Diane Dimond on, and he does have her on often to report about the AEG trial. And, to be associated with that is just like being associated with a bad gang member, in my eyes.
I've never had much respect for him as a journalist. I've always thought he was just a tabloid reporter who bends with the wind. And he certainly doesn't belong in the same room with Mike Taibbi, who's a very professional journalist. Linda Deutsch is a very professional journalist who was always very balanced and fair in her reporting. Dawn Hobbs from the Santa Barbara News Press, the local reporter, was very, very balanced. In fact, she was so fit that I found out after the acquittals that she walked into a restaurant and Tom Sneddon, the district attorney, saw her and walked out, I was told.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, but I mean, there were some professional journalists like Taibbi and Linda Deutsch and Dawn Hobbs, but there also were so many tabloid types that just wanted to see the thrill of him being convicted.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think it was with this? It was obviously ratings, would help, a conviction would help the ratings, but it was just so cool, when you step back, there's a human that's being on trial for his life, basically. He breathes, he bleeds, he's one of us. At the end of the day, I just felt so bad of what, like, Nancy Grace would say on her program every day, coming out with, saying jokes about MJ with such a mean intent. you had to have some tough skin if you were Michael. And I wasn't even going through this, and I could just imagine how heartbroken it must have felt for poor Michael to deal with this whole situation.
Well, he was, in court every day, and then he would go home, and he would get reports on some of the media coverage, which was, mostly negative. And, it was just a hard experience because he was counting on, Susan and myself to guide him through this horrific, strange, menacing process, called a criminal trial. And, I don't think the poor fellow sometimes understood that what the media was saying was not what was happening in the courtroom. What was happening in the courtroom was very different, and the jurors were under oath to follow the judge's instructions. They were seeing and hearing everything that went on, whereas the media was just running out of the courtroom and relaying sound bites, usually negative ones, because they had a purpose, which was to entertain and to generate ratings and revenue. Their purpose was never justice. It was strictly big business. And I think in their minds, big business was to see him get convicted and go to prison, and then it would take a month or two probably before he was sentenced, and there would be a big build-up to the sentencing of Michael Jackson to years in state prison. And they were salivating over this, what they thought was going to be a ratings bonanza. And their general attitude when he was acquitted was, oh, this is unfortunate. We got to move on to something else now. It was a very, very disquieting, disturbing process. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, they do it today, too. It's like, all right, Jody Harris, now let's go to George Zimmerman. People's lives are at stake here. They treat this, in session and HLN, they have some good people there, but a lot of them they just treat, frankly, like a movie. And, the people's lives are at stake.
Their coverage has nothing to do with justice. It has everything to do with entertainment. You got to keep that in mind. To them, it's big entertainment.
Totally. Well, on the fourth year, as we almost hit midnight here on the East Coast, thanks a million, Tom. The fans, let me speak on a part of them. They thank you a million. Every time I come on, I get such great compliments and great stuff, and, it's always a victory for me. Whenever I could score Tom Mesereau, they say. So on this fourth year, with all my heart, I thank you very much for coming on King Jordan Radio.
Well, thank you, Jordan. And again, you're very sensitive. You're a very, very diligent, careful preparer. You find information to put in your interviews and your show that no one else does. And I want to thank you for your extraordinary understanding of Michael Jackson, your great sensitivity to Michael Jackson, and thank you for having me on your show. I really am honored and I appreciate it.
Tom, thank you. That means a lot, and I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Versus Michael Jackson.
Okay, MJ fans, we are hitting the 4-year anniversary of Michael Jackson. Very sad indeed. But when you're sad, don't be sad. Just go to his music. His music is what we all love. And right now, let's hope they get through the trial okay, and better days are ahead. And all the Michael Jackson fans, you guys are great. All right, before also obviously thank God for Tom Mesereau. He is one in a million. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll speak to you next time on King Jordan Radio. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. King Jordan, or follow me on Facebook at King Jordan Radio, or just Jordan King. Take care, folks, and thank you so much. Mike, rest in peace wherever you are. Michael Jackson, we love you.